Hello, everybody, to yet another episode of the World of Presentations podcast with 356 Labs. Today, we have another very special guest. We have been together on another call, I believe like 3 years ago or 4 years ago? 3 years ago, right? 3 years ago. Yeah. I believe it was 3 years ago when our company was starting. However, their company was already started. And before I say anything in regards to that company, I will just leave our guest to introduce himself. So the stage is yours, man. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Boris, and thanks again for inviting me to join one of your podcast episodes. My name is Juraj Holub, and I'm the head of communications at Slido, which is the audience interaction platform that specializes mainly in live polling and the interactive Q&A. So what we do, we help event planners and presenters and educators and teachers to make their presentations, meetings, or conferences more interactive.
Yeah, so Slido was, when we first met, Slido was not starting, right? It was already in there doing some damage. However, let us know, because we know Slido, we are using it like quite a lot. We recommend it quite a lot throughout all of our corporate clients, during all of our corporate trainings. And there are still people, for some reason, that do not know what Slido is. So you kind of very briefly introduced what it is, but give us a bit of more info on what's happening there. Like, why should we care and where people are using this?
Mm-hmm. Of course, happy to expand on that. So basically with Slido, we are trying to solve the age-old problem of people being shy to raise their hand and ask the questions. So this is a main challenge that we have been basically solving since the day one. So instead of raising a hand, you can take out your smartphone, go to slido.com, enter the event code that is provided by the event planner, and you can submit your question to the speaker, whatever is on your mind. So you don't have to stand up, you don't have to stand in front of 200 people, 300 people, 500 people over there. You can just type in your question and just send it to the speaker. On top of that, you can also review the questions that were submitted by other members of the audience, and you can just give them the upvote. So in this way, you can show which topics resonate the most with you and which ones you would like the speaker to actually address.
Before we move on to the next feature, because I think that you are aiming for the next one, in order for people who haven't seen that one to imagine it even more, the coolest part of the Q&A section, so if you are the presenter and the speaker, you create an event. That event, it has a code that you define as the speaker. Nowadays, you can even, you enable the option to customize the code, which was not the case the first time we met each other online. Like 3 or 4 years ago, you were able to just use the code that Slido generated, and that's it. Like, the code was like SQ43, let's say. Today you can change it to anything, right? And it immediately shows you whether or not that code is available or not.
Yes, indeed. Like, we have come a long way when it on the product side, and we just try to make it more customizable for the users. So as you've just mentioned, you can customize the code. So if your, let's say, conference is called Marketing Forum, you can just use the initials, something like MF 2019, just to make it easy for people, for example, just to make it easy for people to join in. On top of that, there are some other cool customizations that can really, for example, like customize a customizable wall. That's the place where, that's the slide, so to speak, where people can see the incoming questions that can be totally customized to the colors of your event. So you have a beautiful stage setup that's with no distracting elements, so everything can look like made from one piece of wood, so to speak.
Yeah, and it looks, and by the way, let's just quickly to go briefly back to the Q&A section, and I will come back to you with a interesting feedback for people coming out of our clients, is that the Q&A section, the coolest part is that people who are in your audience, no matter where this is, either online or in front of you, can ask the questions also anonymously, which is also very important for people, because they don't want to type in their names or emails or whatever. they can do that completely anonymously, which is a huge deal for a lot of people, Even if, however, even if they like, they can put in their names. By the way, feedback, people cannot easily find that, which is also interesting. Recently they were like, where should I put my name? And I'm like, underneath here. And they're like, oh yeah, now we saw it. So maybe if you're thinking about that, maybe some small change or like something can be done there. I don't know. Like that's for your team to decide.
Sure, but talking about the anonymity and basically the option of submitting the questions anonymously, that comes really in handy in all sorts of environments, especially let's say in the bigger companies where the employees have a chance to ask the leadership or the CEO some questions, and some of those questions might be actually sensitive, and you don't want to associate yourself with that question, even though it's completely relevant. Something like, okay, will we get the bonus this year? People might have some kind of a mental barriers in asking those questions. So this really allows for a more transparent, ironically, conversation. So we see a big uptake actually of the anonymous questions.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was about to say was that there were people here, at least in Bulgaria, that we discussed a Slido with, and it turned out that before 2 or 3 years, they spent a ton of money, and when I mean a ton of money, I mean a lot of money to build a tool similar to Slido for just one event, just for one client, instead of actually subscribing or buying the product and customizing it in the way they like. Because from what I know and from what we saw, you can customize it quite a lot to fit as it's kind of your own tool, right?
Yes, indeed. We've heard of such cases before as well, but the thing is that many people who embark on this journey don't realize that you need to dedicate a lot of resources to it. It sounds like a simple tool, but there is the whole infrastructure and all the technical basically support that goes into supporting on the surface seemingly a simple tool. Yes, a lot of these people who embark on such journeys, then they later on basically switch to Slido, and we're happy to support them. We are happy to work with them.
Yeah, can you, by the way, before we talk about something else, can you elaborate, because Slido has, maybe we mentioned the customization, we mentioned the Q&A, but it has one more, I believe, keyword feature, and that's the polls. Can you kind of briefly explain what the polls are?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about the questions feature, it goes from the audience, they go from the audience to the speaker. So the direction of the interaction goes from the audience to the speaker. But we have a second functionality, which is called live polling, where the speaker can ask a question to the audience. And the audience is able basically to submit their vote through, once again, their mobile devices and express their opinion. It can be anything from how did you get here, what's the reason of attending this conference, and giving them a few options to choose from, to anything related to the content of the session, or doing some easy quizzes with them, or just checking the overall confidence on a certain topic. So it's not only about the interaction that goes from the audience to the speaker, but live polls allow for the other direction as well.
Yeah. And the coolest part of that, I believe, is the moment when you see the results showing up on screen live. That is probably one of the most engaging moments that you can create during a presentation, because everyone is staring at the screen and at the TV or the projector or the whatever it's being used to see what's about to happen. Especially when you have the polls that are for multiple choice type of polling, when you're like, what do you think, A, B, C, or D? And when the audience starts voting, the results showing up on the screen, it's very interesting to look at the dynamics, because if there are two options that are kind of very close to each other, it becomes a very interesting dynamic. Which one is going to win, or are they going to be equal in terms of the feedback of the audience? It's a really interesting thing.
Yes, it can be quite eye-catching as the results actually update in real time as the votes are basically coming in. So, people do like that. The speakers do like that. I would just add to that the act of voting, the moment of the results being displayed on screen is engaging on its own.
Yeah.
But what's really important is to actually set those results in the in the context, and provide some additional comments and explain on them, and just really work with the results, not just to do the voting and collect the votes. That is not engaging. You are not actually using the full potential of the engagement out of the polls. What's really important is to really work with those results and just make it a part of your flow, comment on them, praise the audience, set it in the context of the topic of your presentation.
Yeah, we have always said that, Slido exists, and even in the free version you have so many things that you can do with it, and yet we always remind people that, hey, that doesn't mean to use it just for you to use it. You have to think about how to implement it, how to use it in the best possible way to extract the maximum out of it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Very, very important. So what are the coolest, like if you have to mention one really cool implementation, let's call it implementation of Slido, what's one of the best that you have seen?
Cool. So we basically talked about the fundamentals, the interactive Q&A and the live polls, and the devil is in the detail. Absolutely. Sure. Some of the coolest ones, we've seen the speakers basically use the live polls just to let the audience basically select the path that they want the speaker to take. So imagine like the speaker had like 3, 4, 5 examples basically ready to talk about, but instead of proceeding directly with it and just do it one by one, they asked the audience to select the examples that they are most interested in. So it was super dynamic. Instead of a really linear presenting and just going from A to Z, like you give the power to the audience, and that is really engaging, that is really inclusive. So this is something what we did as well ourselves, like myself and our CEO Peter at World Education Congress in 2018 and 19. We were talking about exactly these kind of a new cool case studies and new formats, and we let the audience to select where they want to go and which examples they want us to talk about. So for a lot of people in the audience, it was quite a new experience. It's like when Netflix released this new film, Bandersnatch, and as you watch basically the film, you can influence the fate of the characters, and you can decide what the character is supposed to actually do. So that's what
that's the one that was I remember that one.
And so that was kind of an experience that we were hoping to replicate in the live environment, and people like that. People did enjoy that.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of implementations like that, especially with the ones that you mentioned where people are just, hey, we have 3 or 2 topics that we can cover, which one is most important for you, or where should we start from? And especially in large audiences, that is a killer, because if you are 5 or 6 people in the room, well, Slido is probably an overkill, right? Because you can collect the feedback very easily. However, if you have like 20, 30, 40 and more people in the room, well, then Slido is really, really the thing that you wanna use. Okay, that sounds,
Absolutely, and you touched on a very important actually point over there, that Slido allows you to interact with the audience at scale. And that's really the most important thing, that like with a few people in the room, like as you said, like 4 or 5 up to 10, let's say, it's very easy to ask them to raise their hand to sort of understand the opinion in the room or engage their stance on a certain topic. But if we've got 300 people, 400 people, things get a little bit more complicated, and that's exactly where the technologies comes into play. So
we have talked about Slido like 2 years ago in a YouTube video that's somewhere online, I don't know, but Slido was capable of doing quite some things back then even. Like if you have to go back like 3 years ago up until today, what changed? Like what were the changes that you guys improved? What are the changes that you kind of introduced in the software? Like the best, the top ones? What would you say?
So we are extremely excited about the integrations. And especially the integrations with some of the key tools that our clients started using. And just to be concrete, we released the integration with the Slack, which is a communication platform for a lot of teams, larger, smaller, medium size. So basically the integration allows the team members to submit the questions directly from Slack without the need of switching different tools. And also as an admin, as somebody who actually manages Slido, you can also see all the incoming questions over there. You can view them, you can review them, you can edit them. So it's a really powerful thing to bring basically the tool, or we find it powerful to bring the tool to where the users actually are. And the second integration that we are equally excited, even more so, I dare to say, it's the seamless integration with the Google Slides. So you don't have to switch between two tools, between the Google Slides and the Slido. You can just create the live polls directly inside of the Google Slides, and just with a single click you can add a live poll that is automatically added between the slides. And as you present, you just move on with the clicker, and as you basically come to the point where the poll is supposed to show up, it does automatically. It shows on the devices and people can submit their votes, and everything is done absolutely seamlessly. So as a presenter, you don't have to care about switching between two different tools. So we've been focusing a lot on the integrations and trying to be where our customers are.
Two questions, quick ones. In Google Slides, do you need to kind of install an add-on from their store?
Yes, indeed. You need to install an add-on. But once you install the add-on, which is, by the way, super simple, it's just 2 clicks, you are all set, and you can just log into your account directly from Google Slides. And as I mentioned, you can create the live polls or add the interactive Q&A between any slides within your slide deck.
Do we expect similar add-on for PowerPoint also?
That's the most frequent question that we get, and yes, we are definitely going to explore this integration. There are some technical difficulties on their side when it comes to the integration, so we need to really find the best solution so we are able to create a really seamless experience similar to the one that we succeeded to achieve within the Google Slides integration.
Okay, you promised, so...
Well, I just said that we're going to explore that, but definitely very, very high on our priority list.
Okay, so if you... One last here, so that we don't go a lot over 20 minutes or 25 minutes, because we can talk for hours here. You see a lot of presentations out there, like a lot, because more or less that's part of your work. You are also doing a lot of presentations. However, once you are part of so many events and so many conferences and so many presentations, what are the top mistakes that you are seeing out there all over the world? Because you guys are kind of all over the place, right? So what are the top mistakes that you see people do, even if they are not related to Slido? Like, what do you think?
Of course, like we always try to look at the interaction holistically, because the great interactive session is composed out of many elements: seating, content, technology, facilitation techniques, and all of these things actually need to basically play together well in order to deliver a really good and engaging basically session. Yeah. Coming back to your question, I think the number one mistake that we see again and again is that presenters still ignore the audience. They still are stuck in the very old-fashioned way of broadcasting information to the audience, like being a radio basically, and just sending the information out without tapping into their knowledge, without inviting them to interact, without opening a conversation with them. It can be with the help of technology, but it can be as simple as asking them a question and raise their hand. It can be as simple as giving them a small assignment and just put them in pairs and get them to talk about it and just like do a very quick debrief. So the most important thing that we try to stress is that put the participants, put the audience member at the heart of your session. Think about it. Be empathetic. Think about the stuff that he or she cares about, and just like try to lead a really human conversation with that person. And as mentioned, at the scale it can be done with technology. In a small setup, it can be done on a face-to-face basis, but just try to interact and try to lead the conversation with people that you have in the room.
Yeah, sure. That is probably one of the top ones in our experience too. Like, people forget that there is an audience in front of them, and who that audience is can completely change the way they present. Okay, one more. If you have to come up with one more, do you have one on top of your mind? Okay. One last, which is the second biggest mistake which you see.
Second biggest mistake that I've seen is that people underestimate the time and the effort that needs to go into preparing a good talk.
Oh, that's a deep one. Yes. That is a very deep one. Okay.
I can see that it resonated with you. And some people say that it takes 1 hour to prepare 1 minute of a good presentation. I mean, like, it's a saying, but I'm not really sure about the ratio. But the basically the main message I took from this saying is that to deliver a good presentation takes a horrendous amount of money and time as well. If time is money, then a lot of money as well. But what I wanted to say, it takes a lot of time to actually prepare the relevant content and just to practice and deliver it. And a lot of people actually underestimate the importance of the practice. They deliver one presentation in a month or in a quarter or in a year. It's like going for a swim once a year. You are just basically not stretched out. You need to stretch yourself out, and if you want to give a good performance, you have to practice regularly. Like, if you would like to swim at like 100 meters in a good time, you have to train on a daily basis, and even more so if you don't practice on a daily basis or on a regular basis. So then the second most frequent mistake is that people do not put enough time and energy and effort into preparing for the talk.
Yeah, I will never probably forget the one that we had here, like in the room that I'm in right now here recording this. We had a case like 2 years ago where a person came here to prepare for a presentation that potentially could win $900 million. 5-year contract in the healthcare industry. $900 million, $180 million per year, 5-year contract. So multiply 180 by 5, and 2 years, not 2 years. 2 hours later, while we were preparing the story itself, she said to me, "I cannot even believe that my presentation is still not ready." And that's 2 hours later. And yet, the what is at stake is $900 million.
Yes, indeed.
Said, I cannot believe that we are not ready with our presentations, and it's 2 hours later. Like, it is insane.
You know, it's like the easier it looks, the more effort was put into it. It's like when you see Messi play football. It looks just so easy and so simple and so effortless. But he's but he spent years and years and years of hardcore training. And the same thing goes with the presentations and the slide deck. Like the easier and the simpler it looks, the more effort was put into it. And sometimes, as I mentioned, like horrendous amount of time was put into it. And sometimes you're gonna end up with 10, 15 slides with just a couple of words put on them, or just with a couple of pictures, but there was the whole iceberg just beyond the sea level of time and effort and research and rework just put into it. So I'm with you on that.
Okay, where can people find more about Slido? That's an easy one, but still.
Of course, so if you want to learn more about the product itself, just go to slido.com. You can create your account. You can use Slido for free. We have a free version with almost all the functionality, so if you want to give it a try, go over there. If you're interested in learning more about the meeting design, audience interaction, or presentation tips, go to blog boris.sli.do, and you can learn plenty of articles and tips on how to be a good presenter or how to organize engaging events.
Yeah, all of those links we will put in the show notes for sure, and I cannot stress it enough how much we also would recommend as a company, as a presentation agency, for everyone that's going to listen to this at some point to just check out Slido if they haven't done it yet. Like, guys, please just take a look, see what it can do, think whether or not you can incorporate it in some of your future presentations. It's not the goal. Your goal is not to use it on each and every presentation that you are going to deliver, but in the ones that you see place where you can use Slido, try it out and see what happens, because people are really, really impressed by not just the product, but the overall engagement that it brings in the room. So that's the only thing that I can say. Okay, I think that was like 25 minutes. They already passed by. Let's not keep people hear more. They know where to go, slido.com or the blog.sli.do. They are going to find this in the show notes. So yeah, thank you for being again in the podcast or in some kind of community sharing activity with our community. And I don't know what else to say. Good luck, guys, with everything that you do. Please keep us updated on what you are updating, what you are changing. If we can help with anything, just let us know. Like anytime.
Thank you so much, Boris, for the invitation, and thank you everybody for listening.
Yeah. Bye, man, and see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.